Hello, I'm Chad Lucas, Senior Systems Engineer with VMware, and today I'm going to cover how to configure the VPN SSL client and server for the new vCloud network and security. First, let's log in to my vCenter. What I'm going to show you here is just a few things I already have configured in preparation for this demo. First, you'll obviously need to have vShield Manager deployed in your environment. And as you can see, I have vShield Manager deployed as part of my server cluster in the CL Lab DC. The next thing I'm going to show you is that I've configured a distributed switch for this demo. I just named it VPN distributed switch, and I created a VPN port group as part of that distributed switch. Let's log in to the vShield interface. As you can see, I've added DNS entries in my environment and just named it vShield. The default login is just admin and default. Log in. Over here on the left, you will see data centers. Click the plus sign. There's my CL Lab DC. Just going to left click that. And then you'll notice a few tabs pop up over here. The one we're going to be concentrating on today is the Network Virtualization tab. As you can see, I already have a few vShield Edge appliances deployed. We're going to add a new one. I'm going to call this Demo2 VPN. I'm not going to enable HA, as this is just a lab environment. Click Next. These are the same default credentials for vShield Manager, admin and default, that will be configured for this vShield Edge appliance, and I'm going to enable SSH, although that is not a requirement to configure VPN. Click Next. I'm going to leave the appliance size as compact, and I'm going to leave the Enable Auto Rule Generation checked. Next, I want to click Add an Edge appliance. As part of this, I'm going to use my server cluster, a data store, and I'm just going to select ESXi2 as the host in that cluster to deploy this appliance. Click Add. Click Next. This is where we configure the default interface for this vShield Edge appliance. We'll click Add here and give it a name, Demo2 VPN interface. You want to leave this as an uplink port so it can reach the rest of your internal network. Here, we will select a VPN port group that I previously created. VPN port group. Select. We want to leave the connectivity status as connected. And now we want to configure that default interface. So we'll specify the IP address here. And in my environment, I've chosen 192.168.1.19. Click OK. And add in the subnet mask. I'm going to leave the rest of these values as is and just click Add. As you can see, Demo2 VPN is the name of the interface, the IP address, and it's connected to the VPN port group. Click Next. I'm going to add in the default gateway, and for my environment, that is 192.168.1.1. And you'll notice you want to make sure that you select the the interface that we previously configured. And in my situation, that's the only one configured, so it's the only one showing up. Click Next. I want to enable default firewall policy, but I want the default traffic policy to be accept. HA parameters are grayed out because I did not configure HA to begin with, so there's nothing to select there. Click Next. This gives you a summary. Going to deploy it to the server cluster. This is the Demo2 VPN interface, the IP address, port group. HA is disabled. The size is compact. We're going to click Finish. As you can see, this is now deploying the vShield Edge appliance. And this will take a few moments for it to deploy. Okay, as you can see, the Demo 2 VPN appliance has been deployed. Let's flip back over to vCenter for just a moment. Log in. Click on vCenter, Host and Clusters. As part of my server cluster, you will now see the Demo 2 VPN appliance has been deployed. Click on Summary. You'll see that the interface has been configured 192.168.1.19. Let's log out. Let's go back to vShield Manager. Let's go ahead and configure this vShield Edge appliance. We're going to double click. And we will be working with the NAT and VPN options. Let's go to the VPN first. The default is IPsec VPN. However, for this demo, we want to configure the SSL VPN. Click that. Status currently is disabled, which is fine. Let's go ahead and configure server settings. Here, we'll want to change. This is going to be selected automatically because it's the only interface I have configured, and it's the one we want. For here, I'm going to change this to 8443 as the port. I'm going to leave the default cipher of RC4 and D5 selected, and the default certificate. Click OK. Now we want to configure the IP pool. The IP pool is the range of IP addresses that you will lease to the VPN clients connecting to your environment. Click Add here. It is important to note that you do not make this IP pool in the same subnet as your internal network. For my example, I'm going to use 172.16.10.20 to 172.16.10.30. Subnet mask. And for the gateway, 172.16.10.1. It's important to note my internal network, 192.168.1.x. This is obviously a different subnet completely than this, which is what you want. Configure my primary DNS server, which is what I have set up in my lab, and the DNS suffix. Click OK. Next, we want to configure the private networks. This is the network or networks that you wish for your VPN clients to have access to on your internal network once the VPN client is connected. In my situation, I'm just going to give access to the entire subnet. And I do that by just specifying .0. Another subnet mask. And leave the rest unmodified. And click OK. Now we will configure authentication. For the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to select local. But you can obviously use Active Directory, LDAP, and a few others. I'm going to change the default password policy expire to 365 days and remind me 5 days beforehand. Leave the rest unmodified and click OK. Now we want to configure the installation package, which will be downloaded by your clients via a web browser, and the client will install on the remote system. So we're going to click Add. I'm just going to give it a name of Demo 2. VPN. Now this gateway is the public facing IP address or DNS entry that you connect to your network. In my situation, I'm going to enter my public facing IP address. And remember, change this port to the port we previously configured, which is 8443. Click OK. Now, I want to select Mac as a client option, and Windows is selected by default. And I'm going to leave the rest of these unchanged. Click OK. Now I want to configure a user, since I'm doing local mode. I'm going to click password never expires, as this is just a lab environment. Click OK. The last thing I'm going to configure here, under the general settings, is the session idle timeout. The default is 10 minutes. I'm going to change this to 120 minutes. Okay. Let's go back to the dashboard. Before we enable this, I'm going to create an NAT entry. For my NAT entry, we need to create a source NAT. We wanted to apply on the Demo2 VPN interface. And we want this range to be the range of IP addresses we previously defined on the vShield appliance for the VPN connection. And I'm going to configure just the entire subnet. We want that translated to the default interface of the vShield Edge VPN appliance, which in this case is the .19 interface. We want to enable that. Click Add. You now need to publish your changes. There, that's configured. Go back to VPN and click on Enable. Service enabled successfully. Go back to the NAT tab, and you'll notice that the auto rule generation created this destination NAT automatically for you. Now, before I connect to my Wi-Fi hotspot to get off of my internal network and test the VPN connection, I want to download the client. You download the client by simply navigating to the Demo2 interface that we previously configured, which I've already created a DNS entry in my lab, and I just called it Demo2. And remember to use the port 8443 or whatever you chose as the port to connect to. I'm going to log in with the user ID I created. So here's the client, or the installation package that we previously configured. You just want to download it, so you click the link. And click here to install. Continue. Installation was successful. close. Now that that's installed, one final thing you need to make sure on your network is that on your router, you've enabled port forwarding for 8443 to the edge interface you've defined. Now that we've confirmed that, before I get off of my internal network, I'll show you a few things. Currently, my IP address is 192.168.1.101. So I'm going to connect to a Verizon Wi-Fi hotspot to get off of my internal network. Now you'll notice my IP address is 192.168.0.2. I cannot ping my internal network, as I should not be able to. Nor can I ping the default gateway of the VPN Edge appliance we configured. So now let's connect. Demo 2, log in. Let's go to our IP address again. Now, you can see that I have the first IP address in the IP pool we created, 172.16.10.20. And let's see if we can ping the default gateway of the Edge appliance. There it is. Now can I get to my internal network? There it is. So now, through my VPN client, I'm going to choose the IP address here just to show you that I'm connecting to my internal vCenter server via my VPN connection. As you can see, I'm now logged in. Can navigate through vCenter. Same with vShow Manager. I've chosen .80. The connection's a little slow because I'm going over my Wi-Fi. But as you can see, I'm logged in. This completes this demo. I hope this is helpful. Thanks and have a good day.